Okay, this is section 4 of the Northwest Coast. So it's talking about American Indians that were specifically in the northern coast. So that is Oregon into Canada. So that's going to be important. Winters are cold but not icy, and summers are cool. They have forests, spruce, cedar, all sorts of mountains. So mountains and trees, which you could see from the picture. There's a lot of heavy rainfall. They found lots of food, particularly because they were right close to the ocean, so they found in the sea. They built their villages along beaches and bays and nearby islands, and they gathered clams, shellfish, and seaweed. So all of this is going to be important because it's what they ate and what they built their village out of. So they built the village on nearby islands. That's where they got their clams, shellfish, and seaweed to eat. But then they also hunted seals, sea lions, and whales, halibut, and fish. But then the forest also gave them deer, moose, bear, elk, beaver, and mountain goat. So they had different weapons for that. They had spears, basically. Harpoon had a barbed tip. Harpoon is another word for spears, so we'll make them the same color. That's what would help them get the seals and the different kinds of water mammals. In early summer, they had masses of salmon that they could get. Men built fences across the river to block the fish so they could net them. The forest provided material for houses. That's important. They cut long, thin boards from the logs or the trees and joined them together to build a steady house. And they would make roof shingles out of the cedar. So this is all about what they built to live in. And the women would use bark and use it to make baskets, rope, and blankets. They even had time, because they weren't chasing food all day, so they had time to actually perform these crafts and make different shell buttons, chisels, knives, different things like that. Which of these animals did they use as food? So remember, fish. They said whales. They said seals. And they said caribou, right? So all. Yep, all those animals were food for them. Use the information from the placard and reading section to complete the column. So we can leave the placard row blank, so I'm just going to put blank. And then what were the main food sources? So we have them all right here, luckily. So we'll say fish, deer, whales, and seals. Fish, deer, whales, and seals. What type of home did they make? Well, if we look back up here, this is builders. They built out of cedar bark and they built their villages, cedar bark and wood. They built the homes out of cedar bark and wood. This is reminding me that this needs to be a complete sentence. They ate fish, deer, whales, and seals. Types of and materials for crafts and clothing. Crafts were made out of, let's go to the craft section. They had time to practice crafts. They made shell buttons, so shell, ivory, wood, bone, and stone. Shell, ivory, wood, bone, and stone. The clothing was made out of, they would sew them onto their clothing. Awesome. Ooh, even just like the bark. So it was made out of shell and bark. All right, the tools that they used. So the tools is something that we found when it was right here when it said men used tools. They used wooden wedges, bone drills, stone chisels, and stone knives. It's a lot to remember. Let's see if I can highlight and copy. I don't know if any of you know how to copy but for me I use Command C. Then I get down here, use Command V, and it shows up for me. The tools they used were. So if you need to type all this, you can hit pause and type all of it. I'm going to keep scrolling. Draw a symbol to represent the Northwest Coast. When I look here and I look at, life sciences first. They use fish, so I can have fish here. Where's my life sciences? Water, a lot of water. They live by the water and they live by the trees. So let's get water, trees, and mountains. I'm going to do water, trees. I'm going to get rid of my fish. I want to do water, trees, and mountains. You go to trash. Mountains. Where are you, mountains? They're not in life sciences. Let's see where else they might be. Geography. Mountains, yes. This is my symbol. I'm going to have mountains, water, and trees because they have all of them. Next section you guys will turn in. I'm going to go to the next section. Section 5, American Indians of California. They had regional stretches from southern Oregon to Baja California. This is kind of going to include us now. Ocean storms bring winter rain. Summers are hot and dry. We know all of this. It not only includes the coast, but inland, valleys, deserts, and the Sierra Nevada. The main sources of food depend on salmon. So I'm going to highlight food and then salmon, all in green. And further away, they relied more on shellfish. So I'm going to highlight shellfish. Away from the coast, they hunted deer. Highlight deer. Bows and arrows, we already know about. Set snares to trap rabbits. And ducks. They ate a lot of different kinds of food, right? It's whatever is available. California people, that's us, right? They also gathered roots, berries, and pine nuts. So the Native Americans ate a lot of roots, berries, and pine nuts, specifically in San Diego, for sure. Most people in their region relied on acorns. Man, they had a lot of different kinds of food, right? In the fall, they harvested the acorns, shelled them, and pounded them into nuts. Water was rinsed through the meal to remove it so it wouldn't be bitter. They cooked the meal by mixing it with water in a basket and then dropping hot cooking stones in the mixture. That's really interesting. It would be cool to try to make that. As they worked, women wore aprons or skirts made from grasses. So if it's asking about what their clothing was made of, it was made out of grasses or plants. So I'm going to highlight clothing. Skirts made from grasses or plants, sometimes from leather strips. In colder months, they wrap themselves in animal hides. So if one of the questions is what was it made out of, I could say grass, plants, leather strips, or animal hides. California built different types of housing depending on where they lived. In the forest area, you had tools that they made from antlers of deer to strip bark from redwood trees. So they would make things from redwood trees. So homes is a different color. Let's make it green because it's redwood trees. They draped them into cones to form a house. They wore thick in marshy areas, they had thick mats of reeds. Reeds are kind of like when you think of weeds, but they're green. And draped it over the poles. California people wove plant materials into many useful items. So they used plants to make baskets and fish traps. They would weave those beautiful baskets and they put like clamshells and bird feathers on it. Let's see. California cultural region is comprised of 2 countries. So that is a huge hint because there's 3 countries on here, right? So what we can do is go to the top and see which 2 countries they mentioned. They're talking about California, so obviously United States. And Baja California is Mexico. So we can say United States and Mexico. People on the northern coast, like Oregon, ate a diet mostly made of Well, it's either shellfish or salmon, okay? Southern coast depended on either shellfish or salmon, so let's look back. Salmon was for the Northern California. All right, so salmon is first for Northern California. Southern coast, Southern California, shellfish. When it got cold, people dressed in colder months, men and women wrapped themselves in animal hides. Animal hides. There we go. Use information from the placards. I'm going to again put blank. And then what were the main geographic features? The features were, okay, geographic features mean what did it look like there. So we can kind of use this picture to help us, but it's also saying the region had foothills, deserts, and mountains. Features were foothills, deserts, and mountains. We know that about California. There's foothills, deserts, and mountains. Types of homes. Where did they live? What did they live in? They lived in homes made of, I remember redwood trees, and I forgot the other part, so let me scroll back up. Homes made of redwood trees and thick mats of reeds. Type of materials for crafts and clothing. Okay, crafts and clothing. Remember we talked about clothing. Plants, leather strips, and animal hides. They were made from plants. I forgot the rest. They were made from plants, leather strips, and animal hides. All right, the tools they used were, so now I have to go up and find tools. Tools. This is their food. This is their houses and baskets. This is how they built the homes. Ah, tools. Here's the code word tools. They use tools made from antlers of deer and elk. Made from deer and elk to make houses and hunt. Symbol to represent California. Okay, well let's see. California has to do with like fish, deer, deserts, and mountains. Fish, deer, deserts, and mountains. Fish, deer, here's a deer. Fish, deer, deserts, and mountains. Here's fish, but they had shellfish too. I'm going to do this kind of fish just to be different. Fish, deer, deserts, and mountains. Let's see if we can find a desert and a mountain. Not in life sciences, so I'm going to go to geography. Desert and a mountain. Here's a mountain. I think desert's going to be difficult. So let's see if I can find something different. Desert can be a cactus. So I'm going to use this as my symbol for California. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the next section, which will be section 6, and that will be a new video.